Hey guys, it's Jacob from Hope Youth. I thought I would do a little message on here because I feel really sad that we've not been at Edgefest this year, and we had all this content that we wanted to go through with you, and it's just been resting on my mind, this message over and over and over again that I feel like God has given me. So I'm going to split it up into a few bits and I'm going to do it in here now. I know this is no Edgefest, and there's a picture over there, a poster that I used to have on my wall when I was like 16 years old of Luke Skywalker. I am currently wearing my slippers. I'm not going to lie, I normally play Call of Duty Warzone in this room, and I probably will do that a little bit later, so it's lacking the atmosphere of Edgefest, but we're going to crack on anyway. There's a really cool story in Genesis about a guy called Jacob. But what I want to do is I want to give you some context about this time first and foremost. So at this time, God, or the idea of a God, was not the idea of a God as we know it. We understand a God as a God that might look out for you, that would be your friend, that I suppose isn't against you. That was not these guys' reality. In this time, in this ancient time, a God was someone who you had to win over. A God was someone who might actively be against you. The gods might be against you. If you think of Greek mythology and Greek gods, they would sort of play with humanity, toy with humanity, if anything. Jacob has a brother called Esau. Now, Esau is the favourite. I don't know if you've ever felt like that in your life, if you've ever felt like your brother or your sister, or maybe there's someone on your football team, or maybe there's someone in your class who is just like, they can just do no wrong. They're the popular guy, they're the popular girl. They wear pretty cool clothes, they make the right people laugh, they're super intelligent, or they're great at sport. But in Genesis, what you got to understand is our main character, Jacob, he's not the most popular. He's not your man's man, if you know what I mean. His brother Esau, he's the one that goes out into the wilderness and hunts and brings back the meat. He's the man's man, he's rugged, even describes him as hairy. So with Jacob not being like that, Jacob is not the favourite. Now Isaac, their dad, makes that clear. Esau is the older brother and he gets something called a birthright. So your birthright, or your inheritance, is when the family head, so the father of the household, dies, he gives his blessing to his eldest son. He basically spiritually, it's a spiritual thing, he speaks over him and prophesies into his future and says what might happen, his successes, what he predicts, or not even just what he predicts, what he feels like God is saying will happen in his future. Isaac is supposed to give over part of his belongings to, and the most of his belongings, more than Jacob would get, to Esau, because Esau is the eldest. And in a crazy little twist, Jacob's mum, Rebecca, hears that Isaac is preparing to give his blessing, to give his inheritance to Esau, and she tries to manipulate the situation. Now, the way in which she tries to manipulate the situation is so crazy. And in this story, Jacob tricks his dad, who's losing his sight because he's getting old. That's why he's giving away his inheritance now, because he's getting older and he knows that. So he goes to give away his inheritance to Esau, but he sends Esau out to go and hunt, bring back a meal, they're going to eat together, and he's going to give him his blessing. Now, whilst Esau is out in the wilderness, Rebecca tells Jacob what's going to happen. She says, look, let's put Esau's clothes on. I want you to put Esau's clothes on, and I want you to cover your skin in animal skin so that you feel like Esau and you're hairy, and I want you to go in and trick your father, and I want you to steal Esau's inheritance. What a crazy manipulation. Now, you might look at this story and you might think, oh my gosh, what a betrayal. And you know what? You'd be right. That is a serious betrayal, and it's crazy. It's really crazy. But you know what, the more I was thinking about this, the more I was thinking, okay, maybe I don't put on animal skin, but I think we all try and control our future. And especially for you guys who are going to be in school and you're going to be at college and you're thinking about your results and you're thinking about jobs you might get, you're thinking about your future. You've got what so much of the rest of the world doesn't have as young people. You've got your whole lives ahead of you. Now, people say that like that's a good thing, and it is a good thing. It's totally a good thing. But having your life set out ahead of you, there is no time where it's more tempting to try and white knuckle your way through life. What I mean by white knuckle is like, you know, when you're trying to grip something so hard that your knuckles go all white because you're squeezing so hard and you're trying to control everything. There's no greater time for temptation and trying to control your future as young people than as right now in this season of your life. And I totally understand why you might feel fearful of the future. I totally get it. But actually, what happens when we try and control our lives is we end up losing it. We lose our lives by trying to control it. And we'll see this next in the story as it happens. But you know what? We don't even have to read the story. We can just look at our own lives recently. I mean, just with Edgefest alone, we had no idea when we started planning last year that Edgefest was going to get cancelled. There's no way we could have planned to know that COVID was going to come along and stop us from meeting as a big group all together. There's no way we could have known that. And yeah, that doesn't mean we shouldn't plan for the future. It doesn't mean we shouldn't work hard with our GCSE results. Let me just make that really clear right now. All parents that are watching this, I'm not saying for a second that you shouldn't work really hard and study really hard. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is, it is impossible. It's impossible to control the future. So what are we left with? We're left with uncertainty. Now, uncertainty, I have been travelling with uncertainty and looking through it in more and more depth all the way through COVID. It's something that's been resting on me hugely, how important certainty actually is to me. I always thought I was someone who liked to go with the flow, who didn't like to plan. But you know, with this whole thing happening, it's really made me look at myself and realise, God, I really need certainty in my life. I need certainty in my life. And you know what? In this story, there is a great moment that we're going to read about next that is just going to show us how God delivers certainty to us. So if we read on in the story, we can go into Genesis 28. I'm reading from the Message version. If you want to be super holy, you can get out your Bible and read along with me. And I definitely recommend that you read this story because it's so interesting. But we'll pick up in Genesis 28, verse 10. So let me just set the scene a little bit. Jacob's stolen his father or Esau's inheritance. He's stolen the blessing, and then it's come out. It's been revealed that Jacob has stolen the blessing. He's tried to manipulate, he's tried to control, he's white-knuckled his way into securing his future and getting that blessing, getting the possessions from his father. He tricked his father into it, but it can't be taken back now. But obviously, Esau, you know, big, hairy, manly Esau, who's super hard, he is mad at Jacob, really mad, so much so that Jacob has to leave. He has to run away from his family home because he knows that Esau is going to kill him. So this is where we are. Jacob left Beersheba and went to Haran. He came to a certain place and camped for the night, since the sun had set. He took one of the stones there, set it under his head, and lay down to sleep. Now, just a quick little side point. Jacob's tried to control his future, right? And it's ended up with him having a stone as a pillow. Now, I don't know about you, but when I think of my ideal pillow, it's not like a stone. So maybe there's a little lesson there for us. When we try to control too much, it doesn't always work out in the way that we dream. Speaking of dreams, he set under his head and lay down to sleep. And he dreamed a stairway was set on the ground and it reached all the way to the sky. Angels of God were going up and down on it. Then God, was right before him, saying, I am God, the God of Abraham, your father, and the God of Isaac. I'm giving the ground on which you are sleeping to you and your descendants. Your descendants will be as the dust of the earth. They'll stretch from west to east and from north to south. All the families of the earth will bless themselves in you and your descendants. Here we go. This is the best bit here. Yes, I'll stay with you. I'll protect you wherever you go, and I'll bring you back to this very ground. I'll stick with you until I've done everything I've promised. Jacob woke up from his sleep. He said, God is in this place, truly, and I didn't even know it. He was terrified. He whispered in awe, incredible, wonderful, holy, this is God's house. This is the gate of heaven. Boom! What a wicked bit of scripture. That's not just important because it's about survival. God is redefining what it means to be a God, right? Obviously, we know now, or I believe, I'll speak for myself, I won't speak for everyone, but I believe there's only one God. I believe there's only one God. But God is aware that in that land, in that time, people believe in the existence of all sorts of gods. They believe in the existence of all sorts of ways of doing things, all sorts of ways of leading your life, different things to rely on. But in that moment, God is saying, no, not the other gods, not anything else, me. I'm where you can get your certainty from. In a world where there's a pandemic, in a world where I can't go to the supermarket without putting my mask on, in a world where I have to be socially distanced in school and nothing is certain, even in a world without a pandemic, in a world where my results that I don't know what's going to happen with them will decide my future, there is a place where you can find your certainty, and that is in me. That's what God is saying. That's his promises. And I want you to know that was thousands of years ago, and it's still true today. It is still true today for you living in this world in 2020. That is still true. Jacob's response is really cool. It's really cool. For him to say that he's terrified and for him to say, God was here, or the gateway to heaven was here and I didn't even know it. Now, some of the most epic times that I've had with God have been in places where I never would have expected it. We can limit God, we can put him down into these little places where it's like, God only exists in church, God only exists in worship, God only exists at Edgefest when I am responding in Encounter. But I'm here to sit here on Instagram or wherever else you're viewing this on a little camera and tell you that the gateway to heaven sits wherever you are watching this. Wherever you're watching this, you can interact with a God who is certain about how he feels about you and is certain about the plans that he has for your future.